And let's go straight over to my first guest. She is Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
You had a bit of a moment there, didn't you?
And
you were like,
do.
not sure what night it is.
Yeah, well, I took my time because I've quite often actually said the wrong day. I've done the wrong date before, so I didn't want to get it wrong, so I just bided my time for just a little while. Wednesday, I got it right, folks. That's a great start to the show, right? Let's talk first of all. This is a story that I'm sure you'll agree. To me, Isabel, puts the BBC in the bad light it deserves to be in. This is shocking. This is shocking. They are still, that lot, the BBC, prosecuting thousands of people every year for the non-payment of their TV licences. It's currently standing at around just below 180 quid a year. I say it's not even anything like value for money. But anyway, this is a 69-year-old pensioner. He's not named, but it's a true story. Right, he's got dementia. The BBC has just convicted him for prosecuted him for failing to maintain his TV licence payments. He was doing it on a monthly basis. On a visit to his home in Bradford, poor old boy was caught watching reruns of Minder on ITV4. He wrote to the court to explain that he had messed up his bills and was getting into debt due to his ailing mental capacity. He was suffering from dementia. In a bid to sort her father's life out, his daughter got power of attorney, but amid the chaos that she was trying to sort out, she missed the TV licence bill. So she wrote to the court as well, no dice. In the end, he was persuaded to plead guilty. His plea for mercy basically fell on deaf ears. He was ordered to pay £50 in costs. And this is the shocker, Isabel. He was also ordered to pay a £26 victim surcharge. The victim being the cash-saturated state broadcaster, the behemoth of the BBC, which gets £3.8 billion a year from licence fee money every year. 3.8 billion is taking £26 victim surcharge from a poor old boy with dementia. Now, if that doesn't sum up what's wrong with the BBC and its culture, I don't know. This has got to stop. The last recorded numbers, they used to be prosecuting hundreds of thousands a year before COVID. That has dropped dramatically. The last recorded figures were 47,692 prosecutions in 2022. And here's another disturbing element of all this. Due to women being more likely to be at home when the inspectors call, around 75% of all the prosecutions for non-payment of the TV licence are women. And if you keep refusing to pay, if you just say, no, I'm not going to pay, if you keep refusing, it is still possible you can go to jail. It's not so long ago that, a handful of people went to jail every year for not paying this ludicrous, anachronistic licence fee. But the BBC should hang its head in shame that a poor old boy, 69 years old, with dementia, not only had to pay £50 cost after pleading guilty. Frankly, they should have dropped the case, shouldn't they? This is he's got dementia. But then they accept from him a £26 victim surcharge. Poor BBC, such a victim. It's disgusting, isn't it?
It really is. And actually, this is something I feel strongly about because I myself have quite often been on the receiving end of the most unbelievably aggressive demands for payment of TV licenses at properties that don't have televisions, at properties that are actually unoccupied. There was a period a couple of years ago where I was doing up a property on the Isle of Wight and it was empty. And I mean, there was no furniture in there. The place was unlivable in. And yet the letters would pile up and they would get more and more aggressive, saying, we know you've got we're sure you've got a TV and we're sure you're up to no good watching it illegally. and if you don't respond, we're going to send round the bailiffs. I mean, it was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, the pursuit of ordinary people, and the level of disbelief that the licensing authorities have that you might not actually have a television. You know, some of us actually choose not to have a TV, not to actually watch your programs, BBC. And it is so reprehensible to not exercise some sensible, compassionate discretion in cases like this elderly gentleman who clearly had many much bigger things to worry about in his life, as did his poor daughter. You know, so many of us know how damn hard it is to keep the show on the road, looking after an elderly parent that's becoming ever needier and more vulnerable. The last thing on earth such a daughter would need was the trauma, the ordeal of having to cope with this court prosecution over a measly few quid that makes no difference whatsoever to the giant, squanderous, unethical, biased BBC. Truly appalling, and so predictably disappointing that they should choose to pursue a case like this.
And so authoritarian. It's an authoritarian kind of tyranny that absolutely has to stop. The BBC must not be allowed to prosecute people for not paying this stupid, anachronistic, outmoded TV license. You know, nowhere else in the world are people required by law to pay for their television entertainment. This is something weird out of another age, and it has to stop. The BBC, though, BBC executives, when they're not busy sort of defaming and libeling the President of the United States and screwing up in spades minute after minute after minute, staggering from one crisis to scandal to the next, making a complete mess of it. The only thing they don't make is good programmes. When they're not doing that, their massive obsession, the Director General and that kind of level of executives, their obsession is holding on to the TV licence fee. That's what they negotiate with governments about. That's what the Royal Charter's about, because they get their free £3.8 billion a year. And they're obsessed with not losing that. But I say it's time for it to stop. Partly because we can't have this anymore. We can't have pensioners with dementia being prosecuted for not paying this stupid licence. And it's time for the BBC to be told, since you're so fond of telling us how you're the greatest broadcaster in the world, how your programmes are unrivaled on all the four corners of the earth, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's rubbish, but that's what they think. Since you think that, why don't you just stand on your own 2 feet? Just turn yourself into a subscription service like Netflix, and your programmes, as you seem to believe, are so great that of course everybody will cough up. Or, like the commercial channels, take adverts. You know, why have you got a divine right not to take commercials? Stand on, make television programmes that people want to watch, and you will be a profitable organisation. I don't want to get rid of the BBC at all. I just don't want to pay for it anymore. I don't see why we should. It's anachronistic. It's a thing of the past. It's got to stop, if only for the sake of this poor old 69-year-old pensioner with dementia and many other old folk. When I talked just now about how many women, 75% of people prosecuted for non-payment of TV licenses are women. Many of them are old women who live on their own as well, and they tend to forget this kind of thing. This is just wrong. This is state tyranny. It's got to stop.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it does have to stop. It's gone on for so many years. I mean, they've changed their tactics for bullying people into buying the license, and you know, they've got more, I think they've got ever more heavy-handed, and I just think change is coming for the BBC. This can't go on. You know, the model just, I don't think it's acceptable to people anymore. I haven't actually seen any polling on it, though I'm sure it exists, but I think the polling would show that most people like the idea of the BBC. They just don't want to have to be forced to pay for it. And I think it would be very healthy for the BBC to just have a go at standing on its own 2 feet like the rest of us have to, and soon realise that, you know, you You can only carry on as long as what you're producing is actually marketable and people are prepared to pay more than it cost you to produce.
I mean, the commercial imperative, which the BBC is, of course, spared, the commercial imperative delivers quality because you have to make good stuff. I mean, I'm not saying it all has to be high art or Shakespeare. I mean, you have to make good quality popular programmes, you have to make good quality drama, good quality comedies, good quality documentaries. You've got to make good quality television, then your audience will come to you. And you make money out of that, like Netflix, like ITV, like Channel 4. The BBC is spared this, and because it doesn't have the commercial imperative, the quality of its programmes is down the toilet. They're terrible these days. It's got very few programmes at all that are ever worth watching.
Well, it's not just, of course, it's not just TV, it's also radio, and I think some of the radio output is worth listening to. I mean, there's plenty there to like, but, you know, that's not what our objection is it? You know, there are good quality programs and there are things that I might pay for, but I just think competition is a great thing and they need to feel the heat a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. BBC Radio, take adverts. You know, BBC TV subscription. Be like the others. You know, why should the BBC be spared this? These people, the public sector BBC employees, they're obsessed with it. They must be spared the vulgar commercial imperative. You know, they must get them public money so they can do what they like and pay so many of themselves like £300,000 and £400,000 a year for jobs like Director of Vision. What does that even mean? Do you know what I mean?
What does it mean?
It's
no
ridiculous. Idea. It's ridiculous. And they always they have Director of Television. Well, you know, isn't that the
whole thing? I mean,
it's the Director General's
kind
job,
of core
isn't it?
offer.
Yeah, shouldn't the Director General be doing the vision? Shouldn't he be or she be the person in charge of quality, in charge of television? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So, folks, do you agree with Isabel and I that it is time for the BBC licence fee, TV licence fee, to take a bath, to be shown the red card, to be axed? 0344 499 1000. Next up, let's talk about Donald Trump's immigration freeze, his crackdown on migrants in the wake of last week's shocking shooting in Washington by an Afghani migrant gunning down two poor National Guards soldiers, one of whom is now dead, the other one's fighting for his life. Terrible story. Donald Trump is furious, and he's just going to close the borders to now 19 countries, maybe 30 soon. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott, and this is an international story. We're talking about the United States of America, where Donald Trump and his administration, Isabel, are reacting with furious force in the wake of last week's tragedy in Washington when an Afghani migrant, 29 years old, gunned down two poor young National Guardsmen. One was a 20-year-old girl who died holding her father's hand in hospital. The president's furious. Yesterday, before they named the countries, the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, said this. She posted this on social media. I just met with the president. I am recommending a full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Our forefathers built this nation on blood, sweat, and the unyielding love of freedom, not for foreign invaders to slaughter our heroes, suck dry our hard-earned dollars, or snatch the benefits owed to Americans. We don't want them. Not one. The president picked up on this today and actually started naming. He named 19 countries, but this may well soon expand to 30 countries where there's going to be a total travel ban, total migration ban. He's not messing around. Let's have a little listen to the president in action on this issue.
If they can't love our country, we don't want them. Earlier today, on the eve of the Thanksgiving holiday, two members of the National Guard serving in Washington, D.C., were shot at point-blank range in a monstrous ambush-style attack just steps away from the White House. I can report tonight that, based on the best available information, The Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation.
The fact is, Isabel, we have a similar national security threat, exactly the same, maybe even worse. I mean, because we continue to let thousands and thousands of unknown, mainly young men, across our borders day in, week out. Some of the countries that this ban, which is an all-out travel ban, migration ban, applies to citizens of Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen, and so on and so forth. He's saying there's 19 countries, many of them very familiar to us. These are the countries that supply us with our constant intake of foreign migrants, you know, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, so on and so forth. He's also saying that 1.5 million people who have asylum applications pending can pretty much forget about it. The 50,000 who received asylum grants under the Biden administration can forget about it. And those awaiting citizenship ceremonies can also probably forget about it. They're going to be seriously vetted. Now, you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's a bit over the top. Well, is it? Is it? My question to you is, when you see America, I mean, this is very Trumpian, very dramatic, very forceful, no messing about, never likely to happen in that form here. But shouldn't we be at least travelling down the same road? We're not doing anything about our threat to national security and our threat to the safety of the people of this country.
You know what I'm feeling right now? I am feeling jealous. I am feeling jealous that America has that kind of leadership, because that is what we need in the UK. You know, enough already. It's gone so far beyond enough already with these particular groups of people who are high risk to our country. And it is actually impossible to imagine any politician in the UK saying the things that Trump and the Homeland Security advisor said. Can you imagine sort of doing that blanket ban? You know, it just would not be politically possible in the environment that we have in our political culture, as it were. But is it that crazy? Well, no, I don't think it is. But the truth is, we do the precise opposite. You know, the dodgier, the more dangerous, the more different the country. I'm going to take Sudan as an example. The less likely we are to send them back from whence they came. You know, we basically have a kind of blanket ban on returning anyone to Sudan, a country that has absolutely nothing in common, really, with our own culture and values. I mean, you know, I'm sure somebody will be able to come up with some things of points of commonality, but the chances of Sudanese refugees or economic opportunists being able to contribute a lot to our country in general are pretty low, I would say. And yet we will never return them under the current system because we consider Sudan too dangerous to return them to, ignoring the fact that they've passed through umpteen other countries before they ever got anywhere near Britain. So I think millions of people in the UK now wish for a much harder line approach on all of this. And, you know, there's something very appealing about the simplicity of just saying, you know what, we're not going to take anyone from Eritrea. Sorry, we're just not doing it. We're not taking anyone from Chad. We're not taking anyone from Sudan. We're not taking anyone from Iran. I mean, Iran is one of the most hostile regimes in the world. You know, the Iranian regime is not our friend. And yet we're allowing literally thousands of Iranians to come to the UK. Now, some of them will be genuine political political asylum seekers. They will be fleeing persecution. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to take them. I mean, there are other countries rather nearer Iran than the UK. So I wholeheartedly sympathise with where the US president is coming from on this, and I think there'd be many of our listeners will feel the same.
Unsurprisingly, a lot of the president and Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary's fury is directed towards Afghani migrants. They are the people they want to take a really close look at. They want to re-vet every Afghani migrant in the States because, of course, the 29-year-old who ran down the streets and opened fire just yards from the White House last week was an Afghani migrant. He arrived, of course, under Joe Biden's Operation Allies Welcome scheme, which was very similar to our Operation Resettlement scheme, which was the repatriation, or the patriation, if you like, of the Afghani people who claimed to have helped and collaborated with the British and Americans during the long Afghan war. I mean, we're pretty certain that many of these people are going, oh yeah, well, you helped us in the war so you can come in. We're pretty certain. We didn't check. They just turned up. Anyway, the net result of this, Operation Afghanistan Resettlement, we have 35,000 Afghanis in this country due to that. These were these people being flown in secretly because the government, the Tory government, outrageously took out an injunction to make sure that the electorate didn't know about their howling balls up because there'd been a data breach. So the Taliban got hold of a long list of every Afghani who allegedly helped us during those dark years. Anyway, so 35,000. There's also another 35,000 awaiting either have been granted asylum or awaiting asylum. So over not very many years, 70,000 Afghani migrants have been allowed into this country, about whom most of them we don't know anything about. So President Trump and Kristi Noem are recognising a serious, clear and present danger here. We're not, are we?
No, not at all. I mean, when you say we don't know anything about them, we know perhaps the most important thing, which is that they come from a country with very, very different cultural and religious values and norms to our own. And we know from so many court cases what a problem this is. You know, we are bringing people in who have been raised in an environment where violence is a much more routine way of dealing with things. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. You know, there are many countries that don't benefit from the kind of rule of law that one would expect in more developed countries and in the UK, for example. It's just a whole different setup. So when you bring these people over asking very few questions about their background, and some of them are genuinely traumatized, they've come from horrific situations, and that plays out. There's a price to pay, and we know this from recent absolutely most horrific things that have happened. It's not always the first generation that gets itself into trouble. You know, look at the Axel Rudikabana case. Look at the background there. You know, the horrors of the Rwandan genocide absolutely played a role in his psyche, and it wasn't him. He wasn't born in Rwanda, but the parents were. So you're importing an awful lot of problems. Now, it's right to help people. Of course, we're not just going to say, shut the doors, no one should ever come in again. You know, we British, we don't care about anyone who's fleeing war and terror. The British people do care about that. They do want to help, but they don't want to be totally indiscriminate about it.
No, they don't. And what Trump and Kristi Noem are basically saying is, look, you know, with all due respect to what you've just been saying, Isabel, they're just saying that our first priority is the safety of Americans. And we believe that this mass migration, all these people in our country that have come from places like Somalia and Afghanistan and Sudan, pose a threat to our people, and we're not going to have it anymore. Now, like yourself, you know, we're British and European and sort of a bit more effete than President Trump, if you like. I would probably not do it in quite such a kind of a dramatic way, but I think we should certainly be thinking along the same lines. And the worrying thing is it's not even remotely occurring to our government. They're basically saying, oh, keep on coming, yes, we'll find you some more hotels. Ooh, we're going to convert some more military bases. Great. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. We're going to give you some free money, benefits, you know, free food, doctors, dentists, and so on and so forth. So it's just going to keep on happening here. We need more of this American attitude, but we're not going to get it. Let me know what you think about that, folks. 03444991000. We'll come back to home next, and we'll talk about this, well, alleged potential pact between Reform UK and the Tories. Nigel Farage has reportedly told party donors that he expects Reform UK to forge an election deal with the Conservatives before the next general election. Meanwhile, other members of Reform UK don't seem to be so sure. I'm not sure about this story, but it warrants discussion. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Yeah, Isabel, the story in the Financial Times today to say that Nigel Farage has been telling party donors that he expects Reform UK to do a deal with the Tories before the next general election. I'm not sure what will be in it for the Reform UK party, if you ask me, but he went on today to say, I would never do a deal with a party that I don't trust. No deals, just a reverse takeover. So he's saying that he wouldn't mind assimilating the Tories as long as he was completely in charge and they did what he told them. But I can't see Kemi Badenoch going along with that. No love lost between Kemi and Nigel. I suppose we should say you have some skin in this game. This is your partner, but this is not an issue of party bias or anything, folks. This is Richard Tice, who's the deputy leader of the party, talking to Jeremy Kyle on Talk this morning.
In one sentence, with one question, imagine I'm Noel Edmonds, Richard Tice. Deal or no deal?
No deal.
I'm just trying to get to grips with imagining that Jeremy Kyle is Noel Edmonds.
The head spinner.
that notwithstanding, I mean, Richard being very, very firm about that. Farage just saying, well, as long as they want to just become part of Reform, I'll go along with that. But I honestly, the way things are going, I don't see that the Reform UK will necessarily need the help of the dwindling Tories, do you?
I think I just need to be really clear about something. And I think Nigel has been repeatedly pretty clear about this, but there are a lot of people who've got agendas to damage Reform at the moment, and they know that a story like this is damaging to Reform. So let's just say it again. Nigel Farage despises the Tory party. He doesn't despise individuals in it. You know, I'm sure there are some good relationships there, and indeed he's recently been accepting a lot of defections. But that is not the same as feeling any real affinity. Let me be even stronger than that. I mean, he hates the Tory party machine.
Yeah.
And thoroughly and rightly distrusts them. You know, the party leadership is so bruised from the arrogant way that the Tory party has treated Reform and its predecessor parties over the years. There is no way there's going to be some kind of electoral pact, you know, right now or even right up near the last minute. You know, it's just not what is on the agenda. What Nigel Farage is trying to do is destroy the Tory party. And as you rightly say, you know, the way things are going, the great hope is there won't be any need to do any pacts with anybody. Reform is aiming to form a majority at the next election. And Reform wants to be able to do that without any Tory party involvement. Tories can do what they like, but Reform doesn't trust them. There's terrible bad blood history there.
Yeah,
And I mean that really ought to be the end of it. But don't underestimate, how bumpy this is already getting for Reform, for the party leadership. The more that the left see Reform's trajectory, and the Labour Party, we know, is sinking fast with a threat from all sides, really, the more the operation to destabilise Reform will step up. And you know what? The level of hostile scrutiny that there is of Reform and all its people and everything it says and does is absolutely out of all proportion to the level of scrutiny of the other parties. And this is what the party is facing. And you know what? It's a measure of Nigel Farage's success.
Also, Nigel Farage, whatever you think of him, he's a shrewd and clever man, and he knows that probably the majority of his fervent supporters are disillusioned Tories, people who feel they were betrayed for 14 years by successive pretend Conservatives who are actually nothing much more than Labour light, migrant-friendly, net zero obsessives like Boris Johnson, liberal idiots like David Cameron, disasters like Theresa May, and the nice but ineffective Rishi Sunak. That's why they've gone to a party resolve. So if Nigel Farage turned around and said, "Hey, we're going to join up with that party you left in dismay," that would be counterproductive, to say the least. I was in this very studio when Jonathan Gullis was standing in for obviously former Tory MP, who was standing in for Ian Collins here. This is 2 weeks ago, and I sort of jokingly said, "Come on in, Jonathan, when are you going to make the jump? When are you going to join Reform?" Because Jonathan was nothing if not on the right of the Tory party, and he sort of joked and joked, but then he turned to me, he said, so I thought, hang on, something's going to happen. He turned to me, he said, "They're finished." He said, "They're finished. Everybody I speak to just says they feel utterly betrayed by the Tories." I said, "So seriously, when are you going to leave?" And he said, "Watch this space." And of course, this week we found out that he's made the leap. Here's Robert Jenrick with his take on the Reform Pact talk.
My party's leader, Kemi Badenoch, and Nigel Farage, leader of Reform, have both been very clear that they don't want a deal. So there's not going to be a deal. That's the end of the story. And frankly, the British public, my constituents, the listeners and viewers to your show, are much more interested in what's going on in the country right now. Bills going up, cost of living, life being tough, Rachel Reeves wrecking their livelihoods with their ever-increasing taxes, than speculating about this kind of stuff. And
no, I know that, mate. But the one thing,
my advice as a friend is get Nigel Farage on your show. I can't answer what he may have said. In the city. No, I know that. But what I guess I'm saying is, and you know how much I respect you, there are people texting this morning saying, for the good of the country, would that not be maybe further down the line something that would need to be discussed to ensure we don't get 5 more years of this disgusting, despicable government? That's the question, isn't it? Yeah, I know where the question comes from, and it's asked because people are sick to death of this Labour government, just want to see the back of it and want a good government after the next general election. So I understand the motivation behind the question and the sentiment that there is amongst many people in the country, but both Nigel and Kemi have been clear there's not going to be a deal, so there isn't going to be a deal.
So I'd say a big thanks there to Sooty, Sweep and Robert Jenrick. But seriously, I think that closes this discussion. You heard it, both sides of the fence, and Isabel, who's quite well connected to Reform UK. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. I say it's certainly not going to happen sooner. I think it's very unlikely later. I think Reform UK won't need the Tories, and they say that after the next election, maybe the Tories will be reduced to 7 seats. So, don't team up with the losers. Stay with the winners. Right, Isabel, let's go to break, and then we're going to talk about a story that we covered last week, but I've been very keen to get your take on it. That is Lenny Henry's Lovey Brigade together. They're going to fight reform, and they're going to stop Nigel Farage, and they're going to put a damn stop to those far-right street protests. They don't like the right to protest. Oh, no. Those lovies, they're very left-wing, virtue signalling, halo polishing. We'll talk about that next. Stay where you are. Welcome back. I don't know if we've got some footage. I've always been intrigued by Pedo Island, Jeffrey Epstein's sinister-looking island in the middle of the Caribbean. It's quite near the Dominican Republic. It never looked nice. You know, the Caribbean always looks nice. Not that island. It looked like frightening. Anyway, amazing inside footage has emerged. In one room, there's a dental chair. There it is. Doesn't look nice, does it? Looks kind of. It looks like something where the evil guys live in a James Bond movie or something. Anyway, in the middle of it, for example, there's a sort of dental room, a dentist chair, and on the walls are all these men's face masks. It's very, very weird. We'll show you the full film a little later in the show. In the meantime, let's go back to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I wanted to get your take on this. Is Lenny Henry's new Together alliance. They're a bunch of showbiz lovies and left-wing lunatics devoted to stopping the rise of Reform UK, Nigel Farage and far-right street protests. They don't like the right to protest, these totalitarian, tyrannical, intolerant lovies, these showbiz lefties. Anyway, you've got Sir Lenny. Yeah, he's the guy that wants to us to pay £18 trillion worth of reparations for slavery to people of colour, which would be great. It would send, what, about probably 3/4 of the population into starvation. But as long as Sir Lenny can polish his halo and signal his virtue, who cares? Who cares about the country going bankrupt? But now he's formed the Together movement, Together Alliance. His other virtue signalling star friends include the singer Paloma Faith, of course, Charlotte Church, former Doctor Who star Christopher Eccleston. This is your favourite one, I know that. I know you're a big fan, Isabel. Little Mix singer Lee Ann Pinnock. No, me neither. Maxine Peake, Steve Coogan, Kneecap, of course, and Frankie Boyle. More than 50 organisations are also involved, including Jezza's, old Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party, the Communist Party, Palestine Solidarity Campaign, and Stand Up to Racism, the National Education Union, and the TUC. Not forgetting the 30 MPs who have signed up. This absolutely guarantees Nigel Farage is going to march straight into Downing Street, doesn't it?
Well, I hope so. But when I saw the adverts for this, I just thought, I honestly felt like we wound the clock back 10 years, and that this is Brexit all over again. It's the same kind of cast of characters. I mean, the only thing is, where's Emma Thompson? I mean, I'm sure she's there.
Oh, don't worry, she'll turn up. Yeah, she'll definitely turn up.
I mean, it's just the whole anti-Brexit thing all over again. And how did that work out for you guys? Didn't work out too well, did it? And it's just these lovies. You're just sort of left thinking, have they got nothing better to do than go on these virtue signalling parades? And what do they mean, the far right? Haven't they understood how triggering that is, how it actually galvanizes anyone that doesn't think, we should have no borders at all and refugees welcome, all come one, come all? It just galvanizes those people and reinforces their determination to get this lot out and have a whole different setup.
Yeah, as in America, when all the Hollywood stars backed Biden, the American people just said, sod off, we're voting for Trump. I think that the same thing will happen here. But what worries me about this, all these showbiz stars, they're perfectly entitled to their political views, their opinions and their outlook, their worldview. But I do think it's a misuse of their platform because, they're famous, they're on telly. People tend to look up to people who are on TV, and they might be influenced by this. And also the other thing that occurs to me about this is that their fans, millions of their fans, you know, probably are reform supporters. And these people, these celebrities, these entertainments, these singers, dancers, jokers, well, I say joker, of course, Lenny Henry hasn't been funny for about half a century, but these singers, dancers, entertainers, you know, they despise what so many of their fans believe in, what they think, what they're at. It's like, no, you're Neanderthals. And the real story about these showbiz stars is they can afford to be socialists. They can afford to do this. And I just think, generally, look, you have every right to your political opinions. Don't impose them on the nation. Don't impose them on your fans, because I don't think that is right. I think it's a misuse of the influence these people carry.
Well, I just think that in most cases they're just really ill-informed for precisely the reason that you just touched on there, that they are living very elite, very cut-off lifestyles. You know, it is of course the case that a lot of politicians, probably most politicians, are far wealthier. They come from a far less troubled or difficult background than many of the people they represent. But they have been forced generally to knock on a lot of doors and spend a lot of time in the toughest parts of the areas that they represent. The same can't be said for actors and TV personalities and other lovies who do exist in a bit of a gilded bubble. And that's why I find it quite frustrating when these people choose to pontificate and lecture and be very sanctimonious on their high horses about where politics should be. I just think that it comes from a place of quite some ignorance.
Do you know Lenny Henry's very first starring role, what the show he starred on first in his long and distinguished career?
I don't.
The Black and White Minstrel Show.
Oh, right.
It's true. It's true.
Okay.
I mean, he said that he was very young and it seemed like a big break. I remember my mum used to love the Black and White
Those
Minstrel.
were different times.
It was the biggest show on TV where people used to wear blackface and do a kind of Al Jolson. It was a very strange show. Probably the show from TV history that is least likely to be revived. I don't think it will be on again.
I think that's one to forget.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pinpoint Lenny about that. He was just a kid, but it's an interesting pop fact about his long and interesting career. Isabel, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Brilliant stuff. Isabel Oakeshott there talks international.